Welcome back, Suffolk Squire, barn find, part 4, engine rebuild. So, since last week, what have I done? Stripped the engine, cleaned it, honed it, and got my new pieces. So we're going to go for piston rings, standard, oil seals and gaskets. So here we go, I've got the bits, let's get cracking. So, as you can see, engine's been cleaned, bit of oil there, I've pre-oiled some of it. All of the oil holes have been cleaned, camshaft, I've taken the camshaft pin out, and also there's an oil hole there that needs clearing on the bearing, and the same on the back plate. So it's very important that those are clear. Cleanliness is key. So without further ado, now the only thing we've got to do, like most engines, is set the timing. Suffolks are very easy. We've got no cam belts to worry about or chains. So on the camshaft you can see there's a little line. I've marked it with Tipex, and again there's a little cutout on the crankshaft, and I marked that with Tipex. They've got to line up, it's as simple as that. So we're going to put a little bit of oil seal on the oils, grease on the oil seal, that's a new oil seal, and a little bit of oil on the crankshaft, and we're going to try and get the crankshaft in, so we're going to get both, hopefully line them up till they line up nicely. How are we doing? Look at that. Can you see? They're in there, lined up. So we're going to do the piston. So what we've got, let's pop the piston in. As I say, we've got a standard set of piston rings, oil ring, scraper ring, compression ring. Hopefully I'm not going to break them, because if I do, these are the only set I've got. So let's see if we can get them on. You've got to sort of tease them on. Just be very careful with them. So we've got the scraper wing. This is the sort of fiddly one, because you've got to get it over the first top one and then lift it off that one and then onto the middle. Just gently. There on. Lastly, compression ring. So as I'm sure most of you know, you stagger the piston rings. So the gaps, that's what I'm talking about, so they don't line up. So all 3 rings now, the gaps are in different places. So we're ready for the piston to go in. Now, what we're going to do is oil the ball up a bit. Rings. I've got a piston ring compressor. Don't have to use one, but it certainly makes it easier. So, lift it up. So we need to just keep a bit of pressure on that piston ring compressor and just gently knock the piston down side to side. Does help, definitely. Just make sure that it's not fouling on the crankshaft. Conrod, that is. All right. Tighten up a bit more, maybe. I think I've got that in there, so let's wind it up. Rather than breaking a piston ring, let's just push it up again. Make sure we've got the rings in. Yep. So here we go again. Point, we're going to put some oil on the big end, and I did, when I took it apart, I marked with a little pin punch on the cap and on the conrod, so I know which way to put it back. Sometimes you can't get this wrong, it's not actually possible to do it, but I think with these Suffolks you can. So let's make sure we are getting it in the right way. Good. Right. This funny looking thing is the oil splasher. No oil pumps, just back to basics here with the Suffolk. Works quite well, just throws the oil around. So let's make sure we still turn. Yes we do, so we're going to torque the bolts up. Couldn't find the torque settings or any torque settings on those bolts, but I've done it up to 80 inch-pounds, which isn't much. And obviously bend these little tabs over after. There we go. So next, side cover. A bit of oil, always be generous with your oil. New gasket. And we've got our new oil seal. New grease, because it always seems to be a bit tight. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten 2 of them up, because with these Suffolks, the gasket, quite often there's a couple of different thicknesses, and that sets your end float on the crankshaft. If it's too tight, you add a very thin one. If it's you can always take one out if there's too much end float. So let's tighten 2 up. And let's see what we've got. So, too tight. nicely. So let's see what we've got. Look at that. That's lovely. Just a little bit of end float. So, no doubt in the Suffolk technical archive somewhere it probably tells you the correct end float, but that seems absolutely fine. So, that. Again, whenever you're sort of doing things up, it's always worth just going back and then just making sure that it still turns over and you haven't got any problems. So again, we're okay. Look at that. So end float good as well. So what I did notice, and it got me thinking when I unpacked my gasket set, is just how thin the sump gasket is. It really is. It's like Rizzler papers, really. But I guess that probably means the machining and the surfaces must be nearly spot on. Have a look at this. Just going to pop that on without the gasket. Just look at that fit. Isn't that good? Japanese think they know how to do it? Well, there you go. Beat the Brits. So we're going to pop that off and push our very thin gasket on. There we are. Difficult to get it wrong, that gasket, but I think we'll just put a little bit of grease to stop it moving. You've got little dowels there that locate it. So, just to finish off, we're going to be generous with the oil. There we are. Sump on. Bolt. The back one, which has got a nice big washer on there. Let's turn this over because I think that's going to be a lot easier. Put that on there. So I'm going to turn it around so you can see what's going on. There we are. So we're getting there. I wonder if McLaren would have me in their pits there working on their engines. I have my doubts. So right now, part of the servicing and overhauling is valves. Now obviously they've got to seat properly. You've got an inlet and an exhaust. That's the exhaust, that's the inlet. I've already done that one just to speed things up, but we need to make sure they seat properly. So what we need to do is set it on the firing stroke, and then we can start with that. So we're just going to have a look. Exhaust. Okay, induction, the piston's coming up to the top. So that's where we want to start the servicing. Inlet valve. There we are. Nice thing about the Suffolks, they've got a little groove on there, so you don't need one of the suckers, which makes things a lot easier. And what I've got here, I've got the breather in pieces, and it just so happens that the breather spring acts nicely as a return. So we're going to just pop that on there. A little bit of, we're not going to need much being the inlet. The exhaust normally needs a bit more, but we're just going to put a little bit of paste on the valve. Pop the inlet valve in. And we're just going to lap that in a little bit. So this is nice having these cutouts. don't think it's going to need much, so we'll take that out, put the spring back, just have a look at, see what the seat's looking like. So, valve's looking pretty good, and the seat, that's looking pretty good too. So we're going to pop the valve back in, and next thing we need to do is check the gaps. So let's get some feeler gauges. So according to the Suffolk manual there, 15 on the exhaust already checked and 7 on the inlet. So let's have a look, see what we've got. Good. Right. So we're at top dead centre, and we're just going to slide it between the valve. Perfect. Yeah, that feels about right. That's good. The only odd thing about these type side valve engines, there's no official adjustment. So to set the gap, if it's too tight, you've literally just got to take the valve out. And with something like some emery paper, just file the bottom. I would say don't grind it, you don't want to really heat it, so you're just taking a bit off. Equally, if your gap is too big, you'll probably have to cut the seat a little bit to lower the valve, but as the case is at the moment, it seems absolutely fine. So I'm going to put a bit of oil on there, drop the valve back in, and tip it over and put the spring in. And hopefully I'm not going to lose the little pin. Let me get it out and show you, because it's quite fiddly. So you can see that's what holds the valve. So we'll pop that in, put the spring into place. Luckily, being such a small engine, they're very light springs, so it shouldn't cause us too many problems, and probably don't really need a spring compressor. So this is where my camera lady might be catching this little pin, because I can see me losing it, but we're going to do our very best not to. So let's turn that round a bit. Till we can see a hole for me to put it in. A bit more. Little bit more. There we go. So, am I going to get this in without losing it? What a fiddly job. Look at that, I think I've got it in. I'm going to buy a lottery ticket tonight. I'm on for a win, aren't I? So we just give that a flick, and we're in. And we know the exhaust is good, so we're good to go. Right, so on to the next little thing, the breather, which is very important on all engines. Must wipe the valve grinding paste off that spring that I used. Don't want to get any paste in this whatsoever. So, the breather on these little Suffolks. So this is what it all consists of. Right, so this is the breather. If you don't get this right, it will blow oil all over the place. So it's fairly easy. This little breather valve goes in there. You have got your little cap, goes on next, and then the little spring that holds it all down. So we're going to pop that in there. You can see it's got its locator in there. So we're going to pop that in there. And again, we've got another spring to lose possibly. So I think we're there. That's it. For that, so good. So the little spring goes down, and all it does, it just holds that into place. Push that in there. There we go. So there we go. That's the baffle. Squeeze that up a bit. That's it. So what we've got a new valve chest gasket to go on, which I will put on. A little bit boring. Obviously there's the valve cover. It doesn't really matter which way it goes round, but I think the little breather normally goes outwards. So that's all a bit boring. I think probably the thing to do is I've got the magneto to do, which is there. I've done a little bit on the magneto on the Suffolk Corporation Mark II. So probably no point me going over that. Old ground. And Zenith carburettor, again, same thing. I've done a video on that as well. So between now and next week, I'm going to put the rest of the engine back together. We're going to do setting up the machine, chains, cutting cylinder, and hopefully fire up if I've done my job right. Otherwise, I'll have to get my coat, won't I? Hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next week.